Says the Rambam, Hilchos Mila, laws of circumcision. This is the final section of halachas in the Sefer, although after this comes Nuschat Tefillah, but okay. Mitzvah saseh achasi includes one mitzvah, v'hilamlas, as a chanim, b'yamashmi, to circumcise males, children, Jewish male children, are avodim, as we'll see, on the 8th day of their life. And we'll explain this mitzvah in the following 3 parakim. Halacha Aleph. Mila mitzvah say shechayav l'kares. Mitzvah is a positive mitzvah, and it's unique. It's a positive mitzvah for which is a chi of kares, circumstantially providing. And the person who transgresses and does the mitzvah, they are chayav kares, which is very unusual for a positive mitzvah. Shnei the pasuk says, yeah, the other one Pesach, correct, yeah. V'oil zacher asher ba'yimah b'sar lasei, a male who uncircumcised will not circumcise the flesh of his foreskin. Pasuk continues, and that soul shall be cut off. That is the pasuk in the parasha Hashem tells Mila Avram Avinu. And even though when the concept was given, obviously halacha is renewed after Har Sinai, this pasuk still is the pasuk for the source of the concept. Okay, that's a conversation for itself. Mitzvah upon who is the mitzvah? 8-year-old babies are not mechuyev in mitzvahs, and they can't circumcise themselves. The mitzvah is on the father. If it's a slave, as well, there's also mechuyev to circumcise avodim. And in Eved, even if you own both the mother and the father, there's no yichus l'chayra. So now I'm saying, even in a scenario where the Eved's father is available, nevertheless, it's for the master, the owner of the baby, to circumcise the baby, not the biological father, who also might be an Eved Kanani. You have Mr. Eved Kanani marries Mr. Shifcha Kananis, or not marries, but he has them together. They have a baby. Now we have baby Eved Kanani. Father Eved Kanani is not one who's mechuyev in circumcising the baby Eved Kanani. It's the master, the owner. And if it's sold, it's a new owner, as we'll see. Fine. Oh, well, let's describe that. Can I have an Rambam for Rambam? You lead bias because Kesef, whether the baby was born in his house or whether he was purchased. I'm trying to emphasize that even if the father is himself mechuyev, or at least in Eved you can say is mechuyev to circumcise himself, if the master and circumcise him possibly. But in any event, that even if the father is
the negative commandments,
an Eved is mechuyev in getting a bris. If the master did not give him one, maybe he's mechuyev to give himself one. Point is that he's mechuyev in a bris, and he's not mechuyev to give his kid a bris. It's not considered his child. That's why. Okay. Anyway. But the father transgresses, the master of Leimol, he doesn't circumcise the son of them or the slave they own. Bidul mitzvah say is hereby violated a positive mitzvah. The ein chayav kares, however, the chayav kares is not there, because the chayav kares, even we said, is a chayav kares. For neglecting this mitzvah, she'ein kares tali el ba'al atzvei. The kares is only the person himself. If he himself is mevatel the mitzvah, even though there's a chiyuv on the father, on the master, there's also a chiyuv on the individual when he gets old enough, and when he shirks his own obligation, the uncircumcised person himself is chayav kares, not giving himself a bris.
The father gets nothing. He doesn't circumcise.
There's no einish, no formal einish for a positive mitzvah. Yeah. Okay. Now, if in the event that the bezdin can, the bezdin is mechuyev to circumcise that child or the eved in the time if the father or the master is not going, he's not interested. Not to allow an uncircumcised person to remain among the Jewish people or among their slaves, among their servants. So it's a chiv on the bezdin. Now it's not a chiv on the mother, mind you, it's a chiv on the father down there. But as we'll see, at least it's not a chiv on the mother anymore than any other Jew. This is a chiv on Klal Yisrael, and bezdin has a chiv to represent Klal Yisrael and to do the bris milah. This is Dr. talking about when the father is not interested. The father's going to do it. He's a guy. He has to make sure the bris has the right caterer, and it's an embarrassment. So he wants to push off the bris. Obviously, he's not allowed to. But Bezdin should not step in as long as he believes he'll do it eventually. He's being a vatal positive mitzvah. Bezdin only steps in if they believe it's not going to happen. That's the chayr b'shat. Halacha base. All right, if the guy makes a bris and the caterer is not the best caterer, it's going to punch a heart attack after all. Halacha base.
I'm not coming.
You're not allowed to give a bris meal to a person without his consent. Unless he refuses to do the bris milah. In that case, Bezdin steps in. This is right. And does the bris milah against the father's will. So otherwise, his mitzvah, you're not allowed to take away someone's mitzvah. Wow. You shecht an animal. Perfect. I get a chance to do mitzvah kisedam. I'm going to come covered with blood. Now I'll do that. It's your mitzvah. And if I do it, there's a penalty. You have to pay. Okay. So that's why you're not allowed to do the mitzvah unless he agrees. What if Bezdin doesn't realize they can't? Whatever the point is that they can't do bris milah. Kishiyagdil, when the person becomes old enough. What does this mean? You heard about bar mitzvah. You could say, but okay. When he becomes an adult, he's mechuyev to give himself bris milah, to have a bris milah done to himself. Every day that passes when he's an adult, he's a gadol, he's a bar mitzvah already. He does not give himself a bris. Every day that passes is another mitzvah aseh that he is nullifying. He's shirking. He's not chayiv kares unless he dies without having the bris milah. Because the penalty is living a life without a bris. So once he has the bris, so now he retroactively is potter from the kares in retrospect. Now, over here, the Rambam, the kares, according to the Rambam, you could say two pshat. Kares, according to the Rambam, does not mean the person dies young. It only means in the neshama is called from haba. That's one. Or this could be a raya. Or you could say no. The Rambam agrees kares is the person passes away young. And I think if Hilchos Mila implies that's the case. But here the vart is that the kares is only the penalty if the person never gets a bris. So therefore, you can't say never gets a bris until he passes away.
And the father? The father also doesn't get kares until the kid passes away?
No, the father's never had kares. Only if the uncircumcised person himself shirks his obligation of giving himself a bris, and he passes away, even if he's planning on doing it, he's not chayav kares. The Poskim discuss, if he wants to do himself a bris, he comes, I want to do tshuva, right? The old man lives his whole life as a parent girl, I want to do tshuva. Now we say, I'm sorry, the health reasons, you can't get a bris, it's pashas. Is he potter from kares or chayav kares? So this is room to say that he's potter because here's in Israelis, you can say that it's his fault who asked him to wait, but there's room to say he's potter from kares in that scenario. Okay, good.
Okay.
Halacha gimel. Now, slaves. Whether the slave was born among the Jewish people, in other words, he was born to your shifcha kanas who you own, therefore you own the mother and the baby. So he was born your property. Or you bought the eved from a goy as a baby or as an adult. Either scenario, the master, the current master, has a chiyuv to circumcise the eved. Ella, what's the difference if he's born your property if you buy him? Here's the difference. There's a lot of interesting differences. Right? The next few halachas we're going to discuss this difference of an acquired eved or an eved who's born into the business. Yeah.
Born into the business.
Yeah. I'm just thinking to myself out loud, what if he's a goy? He's not born in eved b'chlal. Yeah. No, so this a purchased eved doesn't just mean the goy owned him and you bought him from the goy. But even if he was b'chlal, he was the king conquered a country and the king took all the captives and so on and so forth. He wasn't a born eved. He still had to circumcise him. Yeah, good. Obviously, halacha gimel. However, she lived b'habayit. That's when he's chayav kares. That's when the shaman got 18 gets the penalty. Kares beikir is an el haba. The fact he passed away is not beikir kares.
Kares is not based. Mason doesn't kill you for kares.
What? Main kares is the shama is being cut off in el haba. If a person passes away without a bris, that's his penalty. If he chooses to not have a bris.
But the kares is also very.
That's secondary, and over here doesn't apply because the whole chiyuv kares is only after he dies. So even if you want to say down holds kares includes dying young, here wouldn't apply. Eved born to a Jewish person has to be circumcised on the 8th day like a baby born to a Jewish person. If Ruvain has a baby Eved and he sells the Shimon on the 2nd day of the baby's life, then l'chayra Shimon has to circumcise him on the 8th day. L'chayra. But okay. Because he was born in Eved. Okay, that's more complicated. But let's say the point is that if he's born into your household, the bris on the 8th day. Miknas kesef nilim shlokach. If you buy the Eved and you do the bris on the day you buy it. Now, obviously, you can't do bris on the 8th day if the guy is already 26 years old. But if we buy the baby when he's younger than 8 days old, the day he was born, you do the bris milah that day.
Wow.
So the bris milah only the 8th day. If he was born, your Eved. If he was born someone else's Eved, for sure, if he was born the Goy's Eved, you bought him the Goy that he was born, a Goy has in the Shivcha. She has triplets. He doesn't want 3 Avad, and he sells 2 of them to make money. So you bought it, right? So you do bris milah that day. But even if the previous owner was a Yid, you do the bris milah on the day you buy it, because that's when it comes yours. That's when the chiyuv is. So it's not that you lead bias is the 8th day.
Not to make it on the 1st or 2nd day.
Say again?
There's a kana.
Fine, that's another story. In that case, Taka don't do it. Yeah. Halacha Dalit. Now, the halacha Dalit, hey, spin this on its head. You're going to have scenarios where a baby, an Eved, that was purchased, the taka is on the 8th day, not the day you buy it. And there's a situation where the baby is born into your household, that he can have the birth on the day he was born, taka. Ketzad, how so? The second scenario is bihalacha here, but the first I'm describing is the first scenario. If you buy a shivcha kanayas, a Jewish maidservant, and you buy the uber, biyolda, and it gives birth after you acquired it, In this case, you have the bris on the 8th day. What if you made a deal with him? You want to buy the Uber, not the shifcha k'nainis, just the Uber. Then afterwards you bought the shifcha. Or if I can't, you could say you bought the shifcha, I don't want to do it, just a shifcha. The Uber retains by the owner. That was the deal. Then you said, well, I want the Uber also, so you paid $100 more. So even though you bought the Uber independently, since Bishasi was born, you owned the mother and the Uber. So the din is raised in Uber, that's making the excessive, even the Uber is an independent purchase. So the fact is it was born after you acquired both. Since the mother was born the mother was purchased before the baby was born, this baby is going to be born circumcised on the 8th day.
Not on the day you got him.
Not on the day he's born. Even though it's like this. The Tanai was that the king is going to be chal when the baby is born. That's what you can't buy the Uber. The Uber is not yours. You bought the shifcha only. Then you bought the Uber. When does it become yours? When the birth happens. So the chayra you would say you should circumcise on that day. Right. No. Since Bishasi was born, you owned him and his mother. The bris is on the 8th day. Okay. That's the din. Yeah.
It's very important,
Right.
Next time you get a shifcha.
Question is, what if Reuven sells the mother to Shimon and the Uber to Levi or vice versa? That's more complicated. Okay. Now the opposite scenario. So that was a case where you have a miknas kesef, that's bris mila is on the 8th day, not on a day of purchase. When is the day of purchase? When is the kinyan chal? Day of the birth. The bris on the 8th day. That was halachadal. Now I have fakir. You buy a shit.
The only time it's the yemei is if you bought an
regular scenario, you buy a male eved, 1 day old, 1 decade old, 20 years old. That day you do the bris milah. Here it's that you buy the Uber and the brich is the 8th day.
Or if it's 30 days old, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Or if it's less than 8 days.
Right.
Yeah, 1 day old, a week old, 8 days old, 9 days old, it's all the same. Yeah, the concept of the bris on the 8th day is irrelevant to a eved you purchased. That was the exception. Halacha Hay's exception. If I can't, we know there's a concept of buying an ikr for the payers, right? You buy land for its produce,
or you buy a cow for
its milk, right? And we'll see that Rambam holds that the kinyan payers is not mamish kinyan aguf. I'll do that 1 second. But like this. So you buy in. I'm buying this shifcha cannabis from you, and maybe she's still a baby, whatever. But I'm acquiring the rights to her produce. What does that mean? Right. The Uber, where she produces, or the Uber, anything she produces, maybe. Yeah. Listen, another example is you buy. We want to learn more about this possibility. You buy the shifcha, and you bought it from a guy, and you made right away a deal with the master, and you included the eved in the deal. You're not going to table the eved, in this case the shifcha, for the sake of being an eved kanani. They're going to remain a guy. And there's an option
only for a year. Only for a year.
No, that's 1 second. No, this is that would be if you didn't make the deal. That's the problem. Here was a chila that you made this deal. She's going to be a ben noyach, a bas noyach. That was the deal.
Is there any reason though?
Because that's what he wanted to do. He didn't have to make the person. He wanted a Shabbos guy. Who wanted Evid to keep Shabbos? And your Shabbos guy. So you want one Evid to be a Bas Noach or Ben Noach. Whatever. So,
but they're that anyway.
No, Evid Kanani is no chayv of mitzvah. Let's say they have to keep Shabbos.
Right.
Can't do malacha. Yeah, even though. So you bought. So this Uber essentially, you bought the rights to the. So the shifcha essentially is yours as far as the payers go.
Only the payers.
As far as the Uber is concerned. Right. So the Uber is still born birishuscha in your rishus, right? And or in this case over here where you bought it to Almanas, and that's your main evet. So and then they gave birth to a baby. Nimel b'yem shivod na'adis. That was the deal.
Right, this is the deal, right? Because she's not she.
Yeah. So 1 second. So then the baby, right? The shifcha who's a bas noyach that gives birth to is going to you're going to have to tell him.
No, you didn't. Oh, the baby.
The baby, yeah. So both of these scenarios, despite the fact that he was born into your possession, the bris milah is on the day of birth,
right?
Not the 8th day. You live bias is the 8th day.
Right.
Here it's the day he was born. It's as if this baby is an independent purchase.
Right.
Okay, as you bought him that day. Why? Because this, in the second scenario, the mother is not considered a shifcha Yisrael. She's a bas noyach. And she have ben yilid bias to call the bed yilid bias as far as this is concerned. This child that's born into your rishus, it's not you own the mother as an shifcha kanainis. You own the mother as a goy. It's a different type of purchase. Therefore, you can't say that the baby is born in your bias. It's your monetary bias, but it's not shot. It's yours as if the Eved is like part of your household as far as being a Yid. And therefore, the bris milah is on the day it's born, not the eighth day. It's not considered Yid bias. And also, when you buy the shifcha for the Uber, you don't really own the shifcha. You own the rights to the Uber, and therefore it's not considered Yid bias. This is fascinating. We'll learn about this. If after the baby's born, right, you're going to do the bris, the mother's inspired and she says, before the bris. That didn't happen yet, obviously.
Right.
Mother says, I want to be a Yid.
No, after the birth.
After the birth, before the bris.
Right.
I want to be Yid. We say, one second, the bris is pushed off, the mother went to the next place, she became a Yid. Bris has come back in a week. Even though it happened after the baby was born. It's fascinating.
Right.
Because it's a whole to do. How exactly does that work? Why is it that way? So the Achreim have different ways of explaining it. We'll see B'Negeya whether the bris is done on Shabbos in that scenario. There actually is a unique difference, but even though usually the rule of thumb is that an 8th day bris happens any day of the week. Sunday, Tuesday, Shabbos, you do the bris.
Right.
Here, we'll see when it comes to Shabbos, this scenario is actually a little interesting, but it's certainly a to-do conversation. Why is it that in this scenario, the bris is on the 8th day, if B'Shas the baby was born, and when the mother had no shaykhs, and the gears happened afterwards, when they tabled the shame and shifch chinainis. But
what is it, the connection of the Ubra to the mother?
When the baby has to be born in a state of Yelid Beischa, the master's household. To be part of born into the master's household, it means the mother from whom he was born belonged to the master as a shifcha kanainis. If the mother didn't belong to the master as a shifcha kanainis, the mother was only owned monetarily as a goy, or wasn't owned b'chlal, was just the rights to the fetus, it's not called Yelid bias of the Yiddish master.
No, but I'm talking about the case Lochach Shifra, Lochach Ubra Ima Liyogam.
Halach Dalet.
Yeah. Why do we go for Shmei Yom? What does that have to do with that?
Because over there, B'Shas the baby was born, you own the mother and the baby.
Right.
So it's called Yelid bias. So even though the Chiddush is, it's a regular case of you own the mother and the baby gives birth and it's your Evid. The Chiddush is, even though B'Shas you acquired it was an independent purchase the way you did it, because you bought the fetus and the mother separate, during the pregnancy, Alpha became, when you look at it as a regular case, when the baby's born, what do you own? The mother and the baby? It's a regular case. So I have two shifchas. One I bought, pregnant, and one I bought, and the master kept the rights to the fetus, and the next day I bought the rights from the master for the fetus. So now I own both shifcha kananis, pregnant shifcha kananis. In both scenarios, both babies are bris with the 8th day.
Whereas, let's say a shifcha is working for you, and then a year into
It doesn't work for you, you own her.
you own her, and a year into her working, she gave birth to a kid.
Yeah.
Your female Ebed Kanani gave birth to a child, of course the bris is the 8th day. That's a classic scenario.
That's a classic scenario of what?
Yelid bias.
Yelid bias.
Yeah. Sure.
As opposed to
Not
As opposed to when you purchased an Ebed, they weren't born. Miknas Kesef.
Miknas Kesef.
Yeah.
or the mother, she never became part of your house because she never agreed to go to the mikveh and have mitzvahs.
Yeah. Okay, so Miknas Kesef
Yeah.
and Miknas and Yelid
Yeah.
bias. Okay,
Right.
now
So the Chaim want to say over here in this last scenario that when she goes to the mikveh, the Tanai is bottled retroactively. Okay, it's interesting. Okay, halacha vav. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
If you buy an adult evet from the goyim, below that's evet lamo. This is what you mentioned about the evet says, I'm not doing bris milah. I don't want to be a Jew. So in this case, because you didn't have this conversation, but the master with the evet after you bought him apparently is saying, I don't want to do this. So Megal and Ima, you conversation with him, you convince him, you praying with him for 12 months, right? And the master has to tell him that he's going to do so, as the Rambam implies regarding his gears. Okay. But Kol Shem Chiddush, you can
He's scared. He's scared to have a bris. He doesn't mind.
The whole thing is scary. Yeah. So 12 months you can argue with him about this and have philosophical conversations about him being a yid. After that, also the comic now that I keep him as an uncircumcised eved.
You don't tie him down and do it?
Nope. You have to sell him back. No, you can't be megaris from the no, yeah. So you have to sell him back, or you can't be bishmil against as well. You sell him back to the goyim. According to the Ram Taki, you can't be told from giving them the bal korach. It doesn't work. Yeah, that's also mashman the chesur perik gimel. He's no love the chilush. That's okay. However, if the master tells the eved before he buys him by his first master and the master as well the chayim. Shelo yom l'shalus. I'm buying him. I'm going to keep you as a ben noyach or bas noyach. Mutal l'kaima. You can keep him as a ben noyach or bas noyach without bringing a bris milah, as we said in the previous case, the shivcha. And as long as he keeps accepts Sheva mitzvahs, these words also go on the previous case where it talks about forbearing with him for 12 months. He has to keep Sheva mitzvahs. That's not a conversation. Again, there's a conversation about
kill
that.
him.
Yeah. So the Rama says that in the countries where the Rama lived, where you're not allowed to be Magayer to Yiddishkeit, it's against the law to convert. It's as you should made a tonight with the Evid that don't worry, there's no gators. So I can put it fine. So again, he has to keep Shav mitzvahs, v'yiyah, kegerteisha, he'd be like equivalent of a gerteisha, v'kulim eretz Yisrael, you mechuyev to give him tzedakah, etc. Avon loy kibul of Shav mitzvahs. If he says I'm not keeping Shav mitzvahs, he wants to worship of the Zara, hareg miyad, he has to be immediately killed, or when there's no bezdin, he's sold immediately. And v'mekabel gerteisha is mashil v'neg. Of course, a gerteisha can only be accepted when the yovel is conducted and not stopped after some chayr exiled. The 10 shvatim, because in order to have the yovel, you have to have all 12 shvatim living in their land in Eretz Yisrael. Halacha Zayin. Gesh and Nechlas Lakal Yisrael, when a convert enters the community of the Jewish people. So the Hilchos Gerus, the Rambam is going to tell us Barichos and Hilchos Isuri Biyah. But the Rambam here references halacha as relevant to Bris Mila. When a guy converts, Chayav L'Mila L'Tchila, he has to first have a Bris Mila before converting. And then afterwards goes to the mikvah. The Imal, if he does a bris milah, he was already born with a bris milah, right? Many people do it in the hospitals, many cultures do it, the Arabs do it. At least he has to have the blood. Tibas dam, exactly, right? So before the mikvah,
take an axe.
The chayin kash nilkshemal. Also, a child is born without circumcised. It happens. Kids are born without foreskins, right? So you have to on the 8th day, after the 8th day. You have, or the day, or if it's an eved and you bought him that day, then you do it that day. Right. You have to at least draw the blood of dam bris, and because that's the chiv of Mila in that scenario. Now, the pasha of the vart is that but the baby, you don't know for sure. Sometimes we're chayshish that it seems like he has no foreskin, but it's there. It's just very thin. But if you do a bris milah when it's too thin, you may damage the baby. So, but you're not sure. So first you have to cover your bases by doing the mitzvah tafas dam bris in the 8th day. If later on you see there's actually a foreskin, it was so thin you couldn't see it, then you do a bris milah later. But you have to do a tafas dam bris in the 8th day in case you talk it right. Maybe there is no foreskin and you can't just push off the milah. So you do the tafas dam bris on the 8th day. If it turns out you're right. That was the bris. If it turns out there's actually a foreskin, you do it later on. Fine. And there's a reason why I was saying that. That's important. We'll see later on. Now the Rambam Hilchos Trumas actually says that a baby who's born gemalit without a foreskin is allowed to eat truma. There's no hatafas dam bris required, which is interesting. Pashas, the reason is because in order to eat truma, the baby who's a kohen doesn't have to have a bris. He just can't be uncircumcised. If he's born without an arrow, that's good enough. Okay, anyway, that's
not too many babies eat truma.
Well, if you're son of a kohen, when they
drink milk.
Yeah, okay.
Almond milk. They don't have a 7-layer cake when they're born.
Yeah, fine. But let's say, for example, this wasn't done. You might say that let's say a baby's born in this scenario. A kohen has a child who 2 brothers died from this. Yeah. Can't eat truma, right? And is a baby that has both signs, both genders. That this is the first time that I'm using this term. I think that Rambam, so he has to explain now what it is. I don't think we had it earlier. I don't think we had it earlier somewhere. I'm
pretty sure.
We did. Yeah, sorry, I mistake. Okay, so over here to be very clear because it's Hilchos Mila, Hilchos Bris Mila. You got to clarify. Good. Who has both signs of both genders. So he has to do the Bris Mila on the male organ on the 8th day. The chain similarly. I'm not sure if he's a male or female. The suffix is a chiv Bris Mila. Yeah, so he's considered a suffix.
But maybe on Shabbos.
On Shabbos, exactly right.
If I may get graphic.
One second.
What do you cut if you don't know if it is a...
No, he has both sides. He has both. Yeah. The chain today for similarly a baby born through a C-section. Which is over there. There's a svara to say that since the mother's not tamei, tumas leida, because the baby wasn't really born. There's a that remember the parsha of Tazria talks about the mother being tamei from when she gives birth.
Yeah.
And on the 8th day you have the bris milah. So there's a svara to say if the birth happens in the way that she's not tamei tumas leida because of a C-section, there's no chiv bris milah. It's a suffix. If that's the din, and therefore that's the Gemara's conversation.
What's one have to do with the other?
Because the parsha puts them together. Isha kishas v'yal zacher, when a woman gives birth and she's tamei tumas nida for 44 days for a boy, and then it says in the 8th they give him a bris milah. Anyway, so we see the parsha puts them together possibly. The Gemara is not sure. The Gemara, right? Is not sure if there's a chiyuv milah in that scenario. Therefore, the bris is done misafik. It's considered a suffix, which is important. Again, like you said, the Shabbos you wouldn't do a C-section according to the Rambam.
But you wouldn't do, you start to circumcise him just on the 8th day.
Yeah, misafik. Yeah. He might be mechuyev bris milah to do a bris without a bracha. Yeah,
What he might?
there's a machlekes if he's mechuyev in a bris milah. Because the mother had a C-section, she's not mechuyev. She's not tamei tumas leida. There's a sorrow. Exactly. Therefore, there's a suffix if he's the baby's mechuyev in
His
her
whole
milah.
life he may have to have a bris.
Yes, that's the machlekes. You want to know what the Gemara is? I'll look it up for you. Baby who has 2 arlas, which what's pshat the baby has 2 arlas?
I don't know.
So Pash the pshat Rashi Gemara says the baby has 2 foreskins. The Mepharshim Rama want to say the baby is born with two male organs.
2 male organs.
And there's a suffix which one is the one you mechuyev. So Malan Hashem, all these scenarios you do bris milah on both organs.
You make a bracha mishan bris, like we said yesterday.
Right, and then you make a bracha. Instead of a bracha, I'll make a bracha mishan bris. Right.
You make 2 parties.
Right.
And you give him 4 names.
Exactly. You do both of them on the 8th day. So both of them are done on the 8th day. Again, this is all misafik. Halacha says in Mila must be done after sunrise. After dawn is not good enough. Whether it's the 8th day, which is the ideal time, or even if when it's not happening in the ideal time, which is not 9th day and onwards. The pasuk says the 8th day, and dafka is after sunrise. The 8th day, not the 8th night. If you do the bris milah after dawn, which according to the Rambam and Pishim Mishnayos is an hour and a fifth, meaning an hour and 12 minutes. Shazmani is before sunrise. Kosher, but it's kosher, and you don't have to do a toughest down bris. If, however, you did in the middle of the night, then it could be possible if you do a toughest down bris later. Or, for example, if the person had a bris milah, many people are not from. They had a moil in the hospital, wasn't a Shemer Shabbos. You have to do a toughest down bris. Yeah.
Well, why is it not?
The bris milah is not kosher. The person's not.
Why not?
For a person to do bris milah, there's certain criteria. It has to be a maimin b'Torah. It has to be. Can't be a min. Let's say it was a guy. The guy's mother had a conversion from conversion. I don't know. The chayim kosher milah. The whole day is kosher bris milah from sunrise to sunset. Unless mitzvahim mitchilas hayim mishajim. If
the doctor was Jewish, then it's okay.
Fine. The mitzvah to do the bris milah as early as possible. Milah Milah was done the proper time. The 8th day. Deicha Shabbos is done even if it's on Shabbos. What if you could travel on Sunday to Australia, so now they'll come out, you have to do this meal on Shabbos the 8th day, even because you crossed Kavatayr. Yeah, okay, fine. It's a shvur, so it's a sphere conversation. Right, and the Chilul Shabbos is what? Chavola. It's like it's the malacha of Shchita, which is that sounds bad, right? But it's the tilde of Chavola, right? Let's say, for example, the bris milah, the baby was sick, the bris milah is being pushed off. In that case, the bris milah is not pushed for Shabbos. The first of Yontif, whether it's the second day of Yontif, according to the Rambam, we'll talk about. Whether it's the proper time or not, it's the Isra, right? There's the Isra to cover with Tras. According to the Rambam, however, if the baby's the Tras
is on the foreskin.
If the Tras is on the foreskin, you do the bris milah. For example, if there was a Beheres Tras on the foreskin, we'll learn the Tras, and you're not allowed to cut it away. You cut off the Erla with the Tras. Despite the fact cutting off the Tras is a Leisa say, nevertheless, let the positive mitzvah bris milah push away the negative mitzvah of cutting away the Tras.
I don't know how often it's going to happen, but okay.
True, yeah. And you might say, 1 second, wait a few days, the tzaras will go away. No, if it's a mitzvah, if it's a bris milah bezmana, you could cut away the tzaras. Halacha yud, or an adult, could be to the Evid, could be.
The poor guy, a milah with a tzaras.
Almost like chef. Just like doing a bris milah on children, you displace your Shabbos, push away Shabbos, override Shabbos. Similarly, that circumcised the 8th day. For example, your Shifra Kanainis, who's been working for your family for 30 years, has a baby. So then the bris milah is the 8th day, also is done on Shabbos. If the 8th day falls on Shabbos. Rule of thumb is if it's the 8th day, it's Deicha Shabbos. Yeah, that's the opinion. Chutz Mila, Baya Shaloi did follow Imay Ad Shiloh. The exception is that case at the end of Halacha Hey, where it's the eighth day, because you bought them, because you bought she paid after you bought her, right? Despite the fact that bris on the eighth day,
baby she titled.
after the baby was born, she tabled, yeah. That case is taka not Deicha Shabbos. Halacha Yidalef, Katan Shanel Bishul Bahol, Katan child was born with a bris Mila, without a foreskin, and you have to do a toughest down bris. Mishnel B'Chayda Shashmin Yedbudei.
That's what you were saying before that this case
Right.
is not Deicha
Yeah. Mishnel B'Chayda Shashmin Yedbudei. A child was born in the eighth day of the pregnancy, and then back then the child was questionable if they could save him if it's considered viable. Before he's formed, which is considered like essentially a living, temporarily living miscarriage. Because it's impossible that he should live. The 8th day from the baby born through a C-section. So let's say, for example, again, so these are all cases of suffix, because we're not sure if this 8th baby is b'chal mechuyev if he's considered a human, right? That's why, because we're not sure if he's going to live. Today we're not sure if he's chayv and mila. Andregan is not sure if it's a male. The baby has two others, not sure which one is the proper orla. So if you do both of them, one of them is being Shabbos, the wound you're making. And the Shabbos not Shabbos because it's a suffix, and you're not doing Shabbos for suffix. On Sunday, Shilahan, which is the 9th day of the birth, because we're not Chal Shabbos, me suffix. Daf Shabbos, Daf Kuf Lamed Hey. That's where this Gemara has the question about is a baby born through a C-section mechuyev in a bris or not. Apparently, it's a question which has not been resolved.
I never heard such a question.
Yeah, halacha yud beis. Mishnah Ben Hashmashes, the child was born between the son and Ben Hashmashes. He quotes out the Shulchan Aruch that Ben Hashmashes for this purpose is 15 minutes, a quarter of an hour before it says. So 20 minutes after we 20 minutes after we call Shkia, which is interesting. Okay, so we're not sure if it's day or night. The baby's born Sunday this time. Is it considered Sunday? Is it considered Monday already? You do it for the night time and you have him born. What might be the 9th day instead of the 8th day? It might be the 8th day. Right. Better do it 9th day, might be 8th day, and the 8th day might be 7th day because too early the mechiv is not chabachal. What if it's Friday night when this happens after this mention? And in that case, the 9th day is Shabbos. She can't do it Friday. It might be the 7th day. Shabbos might be the 8th day, but since it might not be you can't be b'chal Shabbos. So Shabbos the bris is pushed off to Sunday. She'ain deich Shabbos b'safek. You don't push away Shabbos b'safek only b'vadei. Baby's born in the 8th day, or the 8th month. If he's born, he has hair and his nails are complete. He's a yellow child is considered a viable fetus. Which is essentially a 7th month pregnancy. It stayed in the oven a bit longer. It's considered you're allowed to move it on Shabbos. It's not considered a living corpse, not like a stone. It's not muktzah. Because it's not muktzah, you can do bris milah. If he's born, however, and his hair is not formed properly, it's smitten.
And the 7th month it would be.
One second. And his nails are not formed. In this case, we assume it's in an 8th month pregnancy. We're supposed to be in 9th month. He popped out of the oven early, so he's not going to be viable to live. He should have been 9 months. He came out early. The he sit like a stone. We assume he's not going to be able to survive. Therefore, halachically, he's muksa. You're now going to move him. Therefore, you're now going to do bris milah. It's not a problem of doing a wound on him. We'll see. It's like it's considered a piece of meat. But the problem is muksa.
Lady had the baby. Just leave the baby on the floor and finish.
No, that's something else. So yeah, if you kill the baby, you're not chayav misa. It's not considered
it's already killed.
Exactly. Now it could be a suffix, but okay. Without thinking nevertheless, once the baby survives 30 days, then he's considered viable. He's considered a regular baby. As long as he survives 30 days as a person, in he's not considered a fetus.
Which halacha you went?
I just finished halacha Gimel. Yeah. Now Hilchos Mila says a little different, but that's what he says over here. Okay, so now nowadays with the ability to save these babies with incubators, the halacha might be a little different, but okay. A baby that's born in the 7th month. If he's complete with his limbs at least, lavdafki is complete with his hair and his nails, but his limbs are complete. It's considered viable.
How about hair and nails?
It's not important the 7th month. That's what someone wants to say.
I don't know.
Isi Shabbos, the bris milah is done on Shabbos because he's considered a viable fetus. Sava ben Shiva, if we're not sure if he's a 7th month viable fetus or the 8th month not viable, so what do? Nimo Shabbos, you do the bris milah on Shabbos if it's 8th in the suffix. Why? In ben Shiva who v'shalom who been Rishid Shabbos. If it's a 7th month pregnancy, it's the right time. It's Shabbos. In ben Shmeinu, if it's an 8th month baby, it's not viable. Zeh Shema b'katach basu. The wound he's making is tam cutting meat because he's not considered a live person. The fisha zeh neifel imu ben Shmeinu. He's considered a viable fetus. And the Chachamim lifted the issue of muktzah to allow you to do the mitzvah of milah misafik. Halachat as well. The child brought in the majority of his forehead. Chutz made out to the womb. Ben Hashmashis. Av bisha lo yotzu. Despite the fact the breast came out on Shabbos already started. A mall is Shabbos. You'd not do the bris milah on Shabbos because he was Ben Hashmash and he was considered born. Any situation where the child is not the Shabbos because we are a suffix. He's also not the division. You have to sheni shel goyis at a time when you do the calendar like a Sanhedrin. So then he is deicha. However, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, he's not deicha either day because it's considered one long day. The similar bris milah is not in the right time. Sheni Rosh Hashanah is not deicha the second day of Rosh Hashanah. However, according to the Rambam, nowadays it will be deicha the sheni l'chayil. Tezzayin chayla and maybe you're sick and you don't do bris milah is healed. You have to wait till after he becomes well, 7 days. Full days. They only have to do bris milah. When he gets a fever, or full body illness. If he just has an illness in his eyes, as soon as his eyes open up, and he hears that right away, the child on the 7th day, 8th day, he's very green. Yellow. Until the blood falls away. Comes back to the image of healthy children. The If it was very red, that was painted red. Until the blood is absorbed, he turns to look like other children. It's an illness. Be very careful with these things. You only do bris milah on a child who's fully healed. Healthy. Shekaros the fasha because the fasha displaces everything. The Avshla machazman is also possible to not this man. The Avshla has to different result. You can never return back a Jewish life. It's chazas halacha. Isha shemal b'nah b'rishan a woman who does a bris milah on her first child, or has a bris milah on her first child. Who meis machas milah sheshilas chaycha, the child passed away. The chen malah hashemi meis machas kadmana, and then the second child, even the second husband, but it hurts for a second child, passed away from the milah. Beishem baal zeh bin ba'acher. Harei lo yitamala as shlisha. Do not do the bris milah the third child in the 8th day. Mamtli actually yagniat v'yischas chaycha. Wait till he's older and he's healthy and strong. So he's for sure not sakana.